Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the MSP Initiative Live. We are back from Channel Strong. Now, just got a little bit of rest and catching up, if you would, from being on the road for 2 weeks. So for everyone that joined us on the road, big thank you. And I know Keith joined us on the road just at the tail end. I was telling your story, Keith, earlier about the boats parked right off the ocean, waiting to get docked into the port there in LA. But anyway, thanks for everyone that joined us in on the Southwest run of the Channel Strong Tour. Was interesting. Keith says, is the Dallas Cowboy fan club? No, that's just you, man. But that's okay. We still like you, man. It's okay. You're a Dallas fan. See that? And that's coming from me, from Philadelphia. Of course, he'll say that he beat my team. This is true, but there is a rematch. So Channel Strong is now closed, the Southwest version. Stay tuned. Who knows if it pops back up, depending how things go in this year, but we'll definitely be announcing stuff for 2022 once we lock down some dates and some ideas of what's happening. So for anyone that's coming up to some of the larger conferences here at the end of the year, I know that there's still Kaseya coming up. We will not be there specifically, but I know that's coming up. And then obviously IT Nation, which we will be at in Orlando. So if you're coming to IT Nation, November 10th, 11th, 12th, I think, or you're just in that area, stay tuned because we will be holding a gathering, and some information on that will be coming out very, very soon. So last couple of homework items, and then we'll introduce our speaker for the day. On MSPinitiative.com, you'll notice a couple of headings in the menu. Again, just basic housekeeping. This session is being recorded. Hopefully all of our sessions from the tour were posted already, but every session that we do gets put up there. And that way you can go back and rewatch, download. Like since March of 2020 until now, they're all there and they all will be there. So that's number one. Number two, we do hold a monthly prize giveaway that some vendors throw every month in the hat. No purchase necessary. Literally just throw your name in. So if you go under the giveaway tab, you throw in basically first name, last name, phone number, and email, so we can at least contact you if you win something. Then that's there for you. If you're an MSP, what do you have to lose other than putting your name in the hat? No purchase necessary, kind of thing. So all of that being said, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker for the day, Heather from Scott Growth Strategies. I'm going to give her a chance to tell us who she is and what her company is all about, and then we're going to get into some interesting conversation. Heather, all you.
Thanks, George, and thanks for having me. My name is Heather Zinger, and I work for Scott Growth Strategies with the fabulous David Scott. We are a digital marketing and growth strategy focused company. And so even though we focus primarily on sales and marketing, we use that as a growth tool to help people get past specific pain points when they hit certain revenue numbers. So we typically work with clients that are in the 3 to 5 million revenue range, and we help them grow to 8 to 10 million.
8 to 10 million. That's more than a.
That's the goal.
I was gonna say there's some people out there using this multi-figure MSP. Yeah,
I know.
7 to 10 million, you're in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Now, I do have to say it is a process. It does require people to show up and do work, but we'll help get you there.
Work?
I know. Can you believe it? Yeah.
You pay us,
we make you work.
Okay. So let me ask you a couple questions right off the bat to make sure
Please.
We're on the same page. So
yeah,
I swear I've been hearing this for damn near 20 years or as long as I've been going to events. Why do people fail to grow? What is the obstacle, that gets them basically hitting this fictitious glass ceiling and they just can't get past these thresholds? What is like the thing or the couple of things that really come to the top of mind that literally are the main things that you hear every day over and over again?
So I'm going to try and break it down, and I'm going to try and structure this up, but I might be a little bit over the place because it really depends on the person we're talking about. But I'll say the MSPs that we have worked with, some of the biggest ones are they hire us and then they don't want to listen to us, which I get it. But at the same time, it's not like you would hire someone to put cable in your house and they get you there and they tell you what you need to do before they can put the cable in. And then they're like, no, I don't believe that. And then you go work with someone else. So some of that is just working with them on trust. We know a lot of people have been burned by sales and marketing companies. So that is one, working on trust and finding the right partner, whether it's marketing and sales or it's a different type of partner to help your business grow. You got to build that relationship foundation. The second thing is, y'all can take this as a grain of salt. I suspect most people in technology field have some form of ADHD or other mental health challenges, or even certain beliefs that are limiting. So for example, a lot of entrepreneurs, when they start an MSP, they're going to go ahead and be like, oh, I just do it all. And they know how to do it all. They get in there, they're producers, they do all the work. Yet when they start wanting to grow, they have to grow into a managerial or a leadership position, which can be hard for people who have spent most of their time in their life being producers. So with that, they have to change their mindset. Some of this is very basic. It's like you have to delegate. You have to get an admin. I can't tell you how many MSPs we work for, they still don't have an admin for the top leadership team.
Wow.
And every time I get an email, I'm like, why are you wasting your time? Because it's easier and faster for them to do it themselves. But no, you just really have to train somebody and they will do it. And it will free you up to do other things. So that's some of it. And then some of it is, I think, the misperception that marketing things, so like writing copy, doing websites, writing email campaigns, like that is all going to just make sales automatically work. When it's like marketing and sales are two different processes, they have to work together for you to get traction to make it work. Marketing is like the car, sales is the gas. If you only invest in marketing, you're gonna have a car that goes nowhere.
I mean, it's a great analogy. I'm surprised I haven't heard that one up until now, to be honest.
Yeah.
Here's the, like, they say, like, and it's interesting because marketing and MSPs have a lot in common. And here's what I mean by that. Did you know that IT professionals are, just the IT guy, IT department, IT company are in the top 3 professions of the most hated professions in America?
Not surprised. I did not know that. I'm not surprised.
Okay, so they're number 3. Number 1 are lawyers.
Yep.
And number 2 are mechanics.
Didn't know that.
And
That's
it's because people are talking at this level and you just never understand what the hell's going on. And you're just like, I guess do it because I don't know any better, right? Like, so it's interesting that MSPs who are giving advice like they're a doctor or a lawyer or a mechanic to their downstream customers saying, hey, like, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to give you advice. This is what you're paying me to do. And you basically are like, nope, don't want it. Don't bother. Just keep doing what you're doing and just wait for the wheels to come off. And like, so from a marketing standpoint, the synergy is, hey, these are the things that are successful, but you need to do them. You need to be persistent at them. You can't just, be haphazard about what your activity is. And then they don't do it, right? They don't take the advice. So that's where the synergy is. There's a lot of non-synergies there because completely different things, right? To some degree, but it's very interesting to me that, I was at a conference, what is that, 4 weeks ago? Yeah, 4 weeks ago. IT by Design held a conference in Jersey City, right across from Manhattan. And, did the whole Statue of Liberty thing. That was really cool. They actually did a private, kind of dinner on the Liberty Island, which was awesome.
Oh, fabulous.
And, here we go. Keith's like, self-sabotage. Here's so many bogus excuses for failure in MSP market. 100% with you, Keith. And he says, where do Eagles coaches overrate QB stand? I think they would be in the top 5. We'll get to that later. So they took everybody to Liberty Island. It was great. But I went because Gary Vee was the keynote speaker. And I don't know if everybody, if you've been on here, you've heard me say Gary Vee, but if you haven't, go Google it, Gary Vee. And if you want to hear the session that he did, I'll absolutely give you a link. It was absolutely outstanding. Self-made guy, right? And big in the marketing, space. He does marketing and has a bunch of different media companies and stuff for big brands, right? Probably not MSPs. I'm pretty confident of that. But he got on stage and said, yeah, so 80% of you in the room, you probably shouldn't be working. Probably shouldn't run companies. You should be working for somebody else. And I was like, I was like, I couldn't believe that was like literally one of the first things he came out of his mouth. And I was like, he's right. He's right. If you're not willing to put in the time, work, effort to grow, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? That's what they say. There's a lot of people who aren't growing. So that's number one. And then number two, I want to get your opinion on this. He said, if you're under $25 million in revenue, which I would say the majority of the people we're talking to today and about are, you are the brand. You, the human being, the person leading your company, is the brand. The name of your company is still needs to be there, but like that shouldn't be what you lead with, right? Like you need to have a face to your company. And if you don't, you're doing yourself a disservice. Do you agree with that?
I'm like, I have mixed feelings about that, but
okay. Let's hear it. I want to hear you're a professional. I'm just bringing some commentary.
So the thing that comes to me is that when you're an MSP, it takes a whole team to manage someone's technology. It just takes a whole team, period. If you have one guy who is the leader and the person who's also fixing your tech and being advanced, like you're never going to get anything done. You're never going to get anything fixed. They're never going to grow. And so I think it's more important to focus on a cohesive brand voice. So when you're like in personal brands, let's say, right?
I'm not saying that
you
don't need somebody to execute getting your message out there.
Yeah.
But like from the message storyteller delivery person, like you, the human being, needs to be in the forefront of the presentation of what you do and how you help people. And
so you mean like when you're going on the sales call, you're giving the presentations, you're shaking people's hands.
Well, number one.
Or do you mean you're putting your face on your website?
Yeah, no. So let's go backwards.
Yeah,
number one,
yeah.
Most of these MSPs are owner led, especially at the smaller size. So
for sure,
they probably don't even have a salesperson to a a certain point.
Yeah, it's an issue.
They are the salesperson, right? And they're the most passionate about their businesses, and you can't Xerox passion, right? Like you either have it or you don't. So that's number one. Number two, Gary Vee's positioning is when you're creating the content, when you're putting out the videos, when you're creating the blog posts, when you're, like the content message deliverer for your sub $25 million company, whatever it is, should be a person, a face. I'm not saying that the brand of the company doesn't matter, but I'm saying he's like under that size, your message will go further. Your, authenticity will be received better if there's an individual in front of that.
Okay, so this I want to say, I'm like, that could be true, but I'm going to say for those under 25, I'm going to tell you that is often not what they're doing. And I wouldn't even recommend it to some of these guys because they're terrible in front of a camera. And the way that they express passion and what it comes across is when they're talking about the nerdy, geeky, technical things. And I often find that with a lot of computer people, they're so smart. They know things that nobody will ever know if they're not in the computer field. They know more than their bosses or their previous bosses in the old jobs they used to have before they left to find their own MSP. There's a little bit of arrogance about that. Like, you just do and listen to what I say. And if you don't want to do it, well, then I don't know. And I think it depends. We have a lot of different personalities running many different MSPs that we work with. And so one, I can imagine in particular, he's perfect for that. He'll go out, he'll shake hands, he'll do all the videos, he does all that, but that's his personality. We have another guy that he says he enjoys webinars, but when I watch him on the webinar, I'm like, your face is in a frown. That doesn't read well in video. How do we fix that? How passion can look so different between different people. Like Gary Vee has a very, very expressive, passionate personality. And a lot of people love that. Why? Because it's engaging. And for those of us, I'm going to self-disclose, I probably have ADHD too. That helps me learn. When I see emotion, when I see hand gestures, when I have clear metaphors, like you get a car with no gas in the tank, I'm like, yeah, I'm here with you. But not all of our MSP owners have those gifts, have the time to learn that, or even want that. Sure, some of them probably shouldn't be running their own companies. They'd be better off working for other people. But those that do, they can definitely continue if they find the right people to work with them, right?
No,
and
100%.
Also, it comes into having ISRs. Like, a lot of them are their own salesperson. Well, that's the problem. They've got too many things to do on their plate. If you at least have some kind of independent sales rep that is helping, fill your funnel, you're going to do a lot better just showing up after it's a warm or hot lead in the sales conversation. You don't have to sit there and dig through the muckety muck. Yeah.
Okay. So let's unwind one of the, what you just said. So I find that, and I would love to hear what you see because you deal with a lot of MSPs too, that the dedicated salesperson doesn't enter the equation until closer to $5 million in revenue, right? Like they're literally the owner, the guy who started it, who may be at first the only technical resource. And then like over time, he's like, I'm going to hire some additional tech people. And then I'm still doing sales and quoting, what have you. And then like, finally they get to the point where they're like, I'm doing too many things. I still haven't totally maybe, gotten everything where I want it to be, but like, I can't juggle everything. And then they're like, should I hire a salesperson? I'm like, well, just like you said, hey, why don't you have an admin yet to offload some of the kind of, minutia stuff that piles up every day? I argue before you hire your first salesperson, you should hire your first, SDR kind of thing. Like you're somebody who comes in to help you book appointments or set up conversations or give you the opportunity for you, who's still the person doing that, to go in and do your magic, right? Before you go and offload to an actual full-time salesperson. What do you think?
Well, I wish there was a lot of people who would realize that they need to do these things. Oftentimes it's like they start working with us and we're like, you really want to spend this much per month and then not have anything on your sales side. You're kind of pissing your money away, and we don't want to take it if you're not going to do on the sales side. So you kind of need to make some changes, or we're gonna offboard you, because we don't want to just take your money if we know it's not going to work. There's tons of other MSPs we can work with that already come in with a more advanced growth mindset. They're already aware of the investment, both time and money, that's needed to make sales and marketing work. And there's always an onboarding process where it's like when you're putting all your marketing and sales stuff in place, it's like any big project. You go in with equipment, you're going to upgrade all their servers and all their hardware and change out their cabling. That's kind of what happens when we go into some of these MSPs, is like they don't have well-developed channels or strategies for marketing or sales. And so we also have to help them build a content library and a brand voice and all this stuff, give them the architecture, the infrastructure to then be able to do these processes that will then get them results.
Okay.
And
all right. So,
yeah.
so your point is, before you even get to the sales conversation, you need to work backwards from, hey, what is my goal in terms of new revenue, right?
Yeah.
And so how many deals do I have to propose in order to get to that outcome? Because it's never 100. You never get 10 out of 10, right? Like there's a percentage of things that will win versus not. And then like, all right, well, in order for me to generate that many proposals, I need to have so many opportunities, meetings, whatever you want to call them, right? In order to like line up the conversation to get to the proposal, to get to the deal. So like that is the back end of what you're talking about, right? If you don't have the processes and the people and the immediacy in play to parlay off of what comes in front of you, you're just burning money. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. There's a lot of people who sit in your seat as the, kind of, outside vendor helping with sales, lead gen, demand gen, marketing, that kind of stuff, who will absolutely continue taking the money and couldn't care less what the outcome is. And that's where everybody's so bent out of shape in this conversation, right? So I really appreciate you actually saying, hey, we want to work with you, but if you don't want to do your part, we'd rather part ways now than just keep on taking your money and then having you be very ornery about it.
Yeah. And some of the challenge is like, in any new relationship, it can take time before the MSP reveals all their cards.
Yeah.
So sometimes we don't find till 3 months in, they've been keeping some cards off the table. And so then we have to pivot or make really challenging suggestions to them, or be like, listen, you can keep spending your money with us and it's going to go nowhere until you get this. And sometimes it's not just having an ISR. It's like, you need an admin. I wrote you 2 emails last week. You have not responded. It's been a week. You have an event coming up. There's a timeline. What's the point of sending out the email the day before the event? It's even simple things like that, where sometimes they have real operational hurdles in place that will extend the start line of their sales and marketing process. And some of the bigger things we run into with some people that already have some kind of sales and marketing help, whether they have an ISR or not, some of them aren't very clear about the actual services or the way they're packaging it. So we end up kind of having to do a bunch of different little workshop discovery organizing sessions, where basically we have a list of questions. We have our Excel doc we work in, just because that works real well with a lot of MSPs. They love Excel. They love the just straight, clear answers. And then we walk through their plans. Do they have a fully managed plan? Do they have a co-managed plan? Do they have a private cloud? Are they doing an enhanced cybersecurity service offering? What are the add-ons they offer? But to look at it from this side of the user. And so we have this conversation often with MSPs. What's the difference between a plan and a service? You know, it's subtle. We like to do it from the prospect's perspective. They are used to having the cell phone plans. They get the cell phone, they have this, this, and this. It's going to be that much per month. All right. So we want your fully managed plan, your co-managed plan. We want all the things they could add in their plan on that page that in the back, when you're doing the estimate, they'll come up with a number. It's going to be different for everybody because they're going to want different parts of that plan. Then anything that's going to be an add-on regular cost that, you know, you pretty much can estimate for, like VoIP, or like sometimes they have other kinds of like cabling or whatnot solutions that they'll throw in if they already have the client on a plan. They know it's going to be a monthly recurring plan. Then it's
Yeah.
easier to be like, oh, we have a new service. We beta our new service. So a lot of MSPs now are doing like their enhanced cybersecurity services, but they're
Yeah.
trying to play, are clients going to pay $75 more a seat, or are they going to tell us to go pound salt? And we can't really lose them because they're a big client. And so it's kind of a way through the service. We position it this way: come in with your enhanced security plan, right? Services that will eventually become part of your plan or an additional add-on to your plan. Start talking to your clients about it, see how they feel about it. And then let's say from a year or two, once you get more and more people on it, you just make it part of your plan, and then you increase your plan prices.
Yeah.
Especially cybersecurity, because if people are only going to do the minimal amount, are you going to have them sign a liability waiver and then charge them 100 plus K once things go wrong or they get breached? And then is that worth your resources? Is that really what's going to be valuable for increasing your company's revenue in the long run, is going back and cleaning up security breaches? Or is it going to be charging people in advance to prevent these issues from happening?
Well, depends on which side of the aisle you sit on, but because
Sure.
there's some people that just live in incident response land, and that's how they generate their revenue almost entirely.
And
There's no lack of that, but that's a specialty for sure.
mhm.
And then there's everybody else, right? Who's on the other side of that, you know, that sand, the line in the sand. So it's very interesting that you actually have to help people kind of zoom back and say, how are you delivering what your package
Yeah.
are? Keith, who's on the line, always says, I don't do that. I feel like that's a commodity play. I like to do value-based selling. Like
Okay.
I'm going to get from them whatever they're willing to spend, right? Kind of thing. Or
Sure.
show them the value, you know, in what I'm offering, and then obviously say, well, I'm going to charge you based on how much this is helping you versus coming out with a finite price. I would say that's a very custom way of doing things, and you got to be really good at that. I'd say most MSPs are surely not doing that. Keith will tell you that.
I'd say that's an advanced, sophisticated way of pricing that you would need
Yeah.
resources and experience to be able to pull that off well.
And Keith is definitely experienced in that. He drives a
Go,
very nice
Keith.
car. He drives a very nice car that's not a Tesla.
Beautiful.
But his employees drive Teslas. There's
That's
a
fabulous.
backstory to that. There's a backstory to that. We'll talk about that later.
All right.
But
All right.
so at the end of the day, how do you so if your first kind of planning sessions with people are, hey, like you need to clean up your, you know, your messaging, you need to clear up how you're offering things. Like a lot of people would argue that, and again, I don't believe this message. I'm going to put that out there because it's always being said. Hey, if somebody has an MSP, they already have an MSP. So if you're going to gain new customers, you're going to be gaining them from another person, another MSP, and bringing them into you. And then, you know, of course, I argue there's a lot of business out there, and there's a lot of companies that have never dealt with an MSP, and they're dealing with an MSP for the first time. So, putting all of that on the table, how do you help people differentiate themselves from somebody who just goes to Google, finds 15 shops in their area, and says, all right, you all say you do the same thing. So do I go? I doubt they're going to call all 15, have 15 meetings and get 15 quotes. They'll probably do 3 or 4, right? So how do you get somebody to shine a little bit brighter versus just being a guy in the list?
Mm-hmm. So that's a mix between figuring out what is unique about their company. What is unique? So some of our people, they have their own data center. Some of them have security certifications that others don't have because it's a huge investment, both time and money. Some of them have their specific verticals. Maybe they only work with healthcare. Maybe they only work with lawyers. Maybe they only work with financial firms. So once we can articulate clearly what really makes them different, because a lot of the things when we work with our MSPs, they come in, they say, this is what's different about us. We offer quality service. And I'm like, everybody says that. Like, let's dial into what does that literally mean and how can we prove that? And oftentimes we can't prove some of those types of things. But because cybersecurity is such a hot issue right now, something like a security certification or audit, it's way easier. You have your own data center, way easier, because if it's a SOC 2, that's pretty awesome. So we really try to dial in what is specifically unique about them. What are they specifically talented? What do they specialize in? Then we look at who traditionally their clients have been. We talk about who their favorite clients are, what type of work they really enjoy doing, and then we start putting together an ideal buyer persona.
Okay.
Then we start challenging them to put that out there, like put it out to the sales team, really start vetting their clients, and then start changing their pricing. So some people have lower prices and they wind up with certain clients that they're like, these are not ideal clients. They're very picky. They take up a lot of time. They don't generate much revenue. They're not a big enough company for us to be serving and to be continuing to grow bigger. And so then you start raising your prices so that you can drop some of those lower paying customers that are not a good fit for where you see your MSP going in the future. Then you work on bringing in the new clients. And that depends on your region. It depends on your business. Some people find luck with email campaigns. Some don't at all. Some find luck with webinars or video. Some find luck by joining all the associations in a certain vertical. So this is where at certain points, when it comes to connecting with your ideal buyer and getting their attention, is where you enter into kind of like an experimental phase of marketing. It's kind of like iteration and then reiteration. You try something, you look at the data, you make different choices. You try something new, you look at the data, you make different choices. And finally, you dial in your little recipe that for whatever reason, it's not always clear, is what connects with your ideal buyers. And that
Wow.
is time. And that takes patience, takes investment.
That's interesting because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people say, hey, I only deal with one person per city, but because the content's canned, right? And they're just kind of regurgitating it out there. But all things being said, I mean, one of the big problems with this this MSP sandbox that we're living in is they drop 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, some obscene amount of money, and they put in 3, 4, 5-ish, 6 months, let's say, somewhere in that range. They're like, this isn't working. Pull the ripcord. I'm going to go try something else. How long does it take to figure this out and have it work?
So number one, I want to say, I think sometimes marketing plans and packages is the same as high risk gambling. Everybody, they have the best testimonials. Everybody's so excited about them. Rah, 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 rah. There's a lot of rah, rah, rahing going on. And then you sign up and then it doesn't work for you because every MSP is different. What they offer is different. Some of their specialties are different. Their region's different. Their personalities are different. They really do need a customized recipe for their sales and marketing at some point that unless you get in the kitchen and you're baking, it's not going to happen. And so to drop 30 grand in 6 months and expect that all of a sudden it's going to work, I think it just belies a fundamental misunderstanding of the role of marketing and sales and how it works. For us, we tend to start seeing more growth in revenue after I think it's like 1.5 to 2 years. And that's consistent effort, continual investment in time and cost for different things in marketing. Not all the money, not all the investments we ask our clients to make is money that goes in our pocket. Some of it goes in the pocket of their operations. Some of it goes into their sales process. We don't do the direct sales for them, but Dave mostly helps coach them through documenting their sales strategy and sometimes finding an ISR, helping them to make sure that everybody is following certain metrics. He tends to follow the EOS metrics with clients. So there has to be, it's just like any other department, really, marketing. Sometimes I think people think it's just this magical, roulette wheel that you go gambling and you're like, I picked 22. And then you're like, here's 30 grand. And then it just fucking blows up in smoke. And then people are pissed or they're upset or they sometimes really hurt themselves financially that way. And we are focusing, Dave and I are focusing on how can we educate people how to make better sales and marketing decisions, not just from a tactic and strategy perspective, but also from a mindset. Like, how can you better understand how this works so that either you know how to manage some of the staff you have in house, you know what questions to ask your partner, you know what metrics you're going to follow, you know what those metrics mean. I mean, sometimes metrics in marketing are so fluid. And for people that come from very data focused, very logical, very math based work, it just makes no sense. Right.
So it's amazing. This is the first time I've heard somebody say, yeah, I've heard 12 months, I've heard 14 months. You said, hey, year and a half to 2 years. If you're not in for that range, probably don't even start. Like, don't
Yeah.
even put the money in if you're not going to understand. That's how long it takes to figure out what flavoring of recipe adjustment happens to work for your area, for you, and then letting the consistency build up to the point where you start to see things coming back.
And let me add two things, right?
Okay.
So one, I know for some people, they can't afford that investment at the level they are. So if they're small, instead of getting canned marketing content, because canned marketing does not do you any favors on the internet and with SEO, just, I swear to God, hire a high schooler, hire someone who's going to write something original. Okay. In the beginning, it doesn't have to be all the things at once, but do whatever you can in an authentic, interesting, I'm really trying to educate my clients and why they need my services and how I can really help them. And it's not trying to like steal them out of the pocket, because there's so many people in need of technology help. But just do something, but not the canned. The canned is just not going to do you any favors, because most people buy it. They're supposed to change it. They don't. It winds up on their website. Clients come look at the website. We even had one client tell us that they looked at their old website and said, if you can't even put a website together, that makes sense. We're not going to work with you. And they didn't.
Wow.
They lost a sale because of it.
Wow. It's amazing because I know back not that far long ago, they're like, hey, the website is your front page, right? And it's like, yeah, your website has to explain who you are and what you do, but like the whole point of the website is to get them to go to the next part, right? Which is, all right, I want to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And so there's could be too much information. It could be not enough information. It could be just stale content, right? Like there is a recipe there too.
Yeah. And it depends on where they are in their buyer's journey. Like if they're like, I just need more information, they're going to want to look at blogs and look at FAQs. If they're like, we already know that we need someone and we're going with you because we like the proof, we've done a project with you before, they're going to come and be like, yeah, I want to hire you. Most people are in between the two, right?
Yeah. It's interesting that there's not any one thing, right? Like there's multiple pieces, right? It's multi-layered, right? It's kind of like your security package, right?
Yeah,
it's no longer just a firewall, antivirus, and email filtering or something, right? It's like much more diverse now. So there's multiple levels to this, right? Whether it's social, and I know a lot of people struggle with social, or blogs, or just continuously writing content and videos in order to bring people in. They call it inbound marketing, or you're pushing things out, right? Like email, okay, or follow-up calls, or you're inviting them to an event. Like there's a kind of this boiling point where all this stuff kind of comes together, and then all of a sudden 2, 3, 4 things clicking together finally gets somebody to move. There used to say it was like, oh, it takes 7 touch points to get somebody to interact. I don't think that's right anymore, right? It's got to be way higher.
I imagine it's way higher. I don't have the exact number, but when we talk to our MSPs, we have people who typically, sometimes it could take anywhere from like 2 months to a year to close some of the sales. Now, some of it depends on how much they're going to spend, but buyers, and they're just in different parts of the process. I even know on our side, Dave, some of our clients today, he's been building relationships with them over the past 5 years. And that's the huge thing, is the relationship. It doesn't matter wherever everything is an opportunity, if not to close the sale, to build the trust that will lead to future opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, and I would say that, hey, Gary Vee said 25 million, but at every level, there does need to be some sort of rapport built. There does need to be some sort of trust built, because, listen, people are going to spend money with people that they feel more trust with than not, right? That's just, unless you like that high stakes gambling, like you said, right? Like, just roll the dice and see what happens.
I know what it's like. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've never been a big gambling guy. Although the casino is nice, but I just kind of hang out and people watch.
Very smart man.
Hey, I always said, if you're gonna go gambling, like set a number, right? Only take the money you're gonna gamble with, and that's it. You don't want to get those $25 ATM fees. But back to MSP land, like okay, so we talked in the beginning of this of what are the top 2 or 3 things that just always stall people and why they just never grow, right? They get to a certain point and they tap out. So for the people that you've said, you know what, we're going to stop here. Please don't give us any more money. We don't want to take your money anymore because it's just not working.
Yeah.
What, like, I know you've said a couple, but like, what are the main things of why that type of engagement just you would step away from?
So some of the big reasons, and then I was going to go back to addressing like some of the bigger struggles. But so for instance, when we talk with people about growth mindset, right in the beginning, like, what are your goals? How much are you trying to get to? What do you want to do in your life? What's the next big thing that you want to get at? Which is why you're working all the time. And some people, they love working. They want to build another business. They want to acquire. They want to get bigger. Some people are like, I want to retire and buy a yacht. I want 5 million Porsches. I don't care. Whatever it is that makes your life worth living. What is that next big thing for you? And so when we get into it, I want to buy a fancy car and a boat. I feel you. I don't know. That's amazing.
Fancy car, a boat, and fine cigars. It doesn't sound so bad.
That sounds lovely. I'm not a cigar smoker, but I can appreciate that. So with some of them, I think they say they want those things, but the truth is that we realize over 6 months is they either don't really want it or that they just don't have what it takes to get there. And so for them and then it's either like, you should just sell your MSP now and either go work for somebody else. Sometimes Dave is blunt or is not that blunt about it. Dave tends to have these types of conversations with people.
I don't know. Dave's kind of a nice guy. Gary Vee's just like, no, you're done, finished. Go work somewhere else. Like, he'll tell
Dave's
you.
Very nice. Yes. Dave always keeps the bridge there for people, which is why I appreciate him so much. So we're either like, here's some other options. Either you sell or you merge with somebody else and you become like their right-hand man while they learn and they lead and they do more of the sales activities, or you sell and you just go work for somebody else or find something else to do. And some people don't like that. And that's fair.
It's a hard message to swallow.
It's a hard message. Sometimes if we have too much resistance to, like, we're giving them, the best advice, the best recommendations, and there's too much resistance around it, we'll have to part ways and be like, why would you pay us if you're not going to do what we say? You hired us to consult you and now you're not listening to us. So this is not working. So you need to go find something else. Sometimes people are like, why isn't it happening fast enough? Sometimes we're like, results. And we're like, oh my God, it's only been 6 months. Let's go through all the activities we've done to build up these results, and I think there's just so many parallels with computer technology. It's like, you have people who want to use laptops from 2013. You think you're going to do anything amazing for them when it comes to cybersecurity if they're using laptops from 20? No. And some of them have really outdated ideas and beliefs, not just about marketing, but about themselves, about business, about relationships. So sometimes it gets pretty personal. And again,
Wow.
Dave is kind of the purveyor of most of these conversations, but sometimes, they have started calling me the sergeant. I guess that's my nickname. I come in with all the processes and like, this is how we're going to do things. And you have to fill this out and accountability. And I think, as I mentioned before, as I suspect there's a lot of ADHD, and I don't know how familiar you are with that, but it does go into executive function deficits. People can be very brilliant, but they struggle with managing all these details. Like, they hit a threshold of details and then they fall apart. Like, they just can't process it. And then their processing and structure falls, and then they're not responding calls. You don't hear from them. They ghost you for 2 weeks. And you're like, we got to work on helping you through your threshold by adding an admin in there. We have to increase your threshold so you can keep your mind on the things that you're most brilliant at, that are going to be most valuable for your company, instead of frittering it away on these, like, filling your sales pipeline or scheduling meetings. Like, what are you doing? Seriously, stop it. Please stop.
I know why they call you the general.
Yeah, right.
So Keith pops in and says, seriously, I think many people do not realize they deserve success.
Yeah.
I honestly get loads of griefs on these MSP calls. I've been ridiculed for throwing money around. Keith, I think your car is great, by the way. Don't ever listen to that. Almost like making money is evil. You cannot do charity when you are poor. I agree with everything you just said, Keith.
Totally.
Here's the reality. Like, hard lesson for me, because I do love to work. For everybody that follows me, driving, flying around the planet when things are open, or driving around the country. I do like to work. I'm not going to lie, but like, are you living to work or are you working to live? Right? Big question. Like serious, cut a line in the sand. Like there's a serious, you need to decide, right? And then number two, you're not working for free, right? At the end of the year, if you're not, if the scoreboard is how much money's in the bank account, like I understand you help people, totally understand that that's good, but like you help people and you also need to live and more than just survive, right? You need to like, enjoy life. So
we're a business first. Yes,
exactly. So I think a lot of people, definitely undercut themselves and definitely don't charge enough and definitely have a hard time going back asking to charge the right amount and
that's
like
huge.
worried about setting the right price because they don't want to lose a customer. But it's like, hey, that whole concept of there's a good and a bad customer, I'm sure that's part of your dialogue, right? Because you need to get rid of, I know it's a cliche, right? There are bad customers. You need to find a way to move past them or else you'll never get past the point that you're trying to.
They're not a right fit anymore. They might have been in the past. They're not anymore. You want to move on and grow. You got to work on changing them out for other people that are better fit for your services. Yeah.
Yeah. He says, good, better, best is the blue light of the MSP. Sales is the price per. Yeah. So this is what he's saying. Instead of the bronze, gold, silver kind of approach, he's like sell on value. Very advanced thing, right? And Keith, you're amazing at it, right? But of course, like when Heather first got on, she's like, we take MSPs there in 3 to 5 million, get them closer to 10 million. There's almost doubling revenue or more, right? Like that looks completely different from that size to this size, right? So I think let me flip the equation around. The people that are absolutely crushing it, right? The people that you're working with that like you put your stuff on there and like the rocket booster started shooting. Why are those people successful?
They're putting in the time and they're putting in the effort and they have more internal resources to support them in their processes. I'm not saying you have to have those coming in, but you need to be aware that at some point you're going to need the admin, you're going to need the ISR, you're going to need that because what you make for the company is more valuable than these activities you can pay other people less to do that are actually going to enjoy those jobs better than a lot of owners enjoy. And that's what I say. Is it really in your best interest to pay yourself, let's say anywhere from $100 to $200 an hour to do something you could pay someone else to do for, I don't know, anywhere from $20 to $30 an hour? No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
I hate invoicing.
Yeah. Then hire it out. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I hate mowing my lawn.
I also hate going to the post office and mailing stuff out.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Especially when the post office says their credit card machine's been broken for 4 weeks. I think they need an IT person. Anyone want to go help them out? Okay. So let's talk about the people so we talked about the really successful people and why they're successful. We talked about the people that aren't successful and you're like, I'm out. The people that are in between, right? The people who are like, I'll stick in there, it might work, it might not. Like, what's the lukewarmness, right? Is it that they don't understand marketing, so they're not 100% in? Is it that, they're like, well, like I'm going to try it for a little bit. And then like that little bit is like some number that changes from week to week. Like who the people that are on the fence, right? Like, why are they there? What's the uncomfortableness? Why they can't even go left or right?
Some of them, I think they're burned out. Some of them I think are afraid. Like they haven't yet committed. Like, do I just like where I'm at? Or do I want to get bigger and go through a whole other period of change and growth and challenges? What do I thrive on? Some people really thrive on that. And some people they just want to hang out where they are. And that's good enough for them.
If Keith's I should just add him to the call. I feel like he's like, he says, I hate working every day. The best thing is to dilute your value to your business. He's like, spending time being creative and more important, living life. We need to understand we are simply technical resources, not first responders or superheroes. Well, to some degree, if somebody's in a really bad spot and you can go into their business and solve their business challenge with technology, you could be at least for 15 minutes a
security
superhero
breach
or a first responder. But I think part of the problem for sure, and it sounds like Dave is spending a little bit of his time more with the couch and the notebook than actually the other stuff, but which is interesting in itself. But it's like, hey, like, are you actually doing something that makes sense? Are you driving towards an outcome? Or are you just living in the day and just trying to like pay your bills? Maybe. So big dichotomy, big difference. I totally understand the, hey, maybe I'm just happy where we're at, like lifestyle business, they call it, right? Things are just cool. We're good where we're at. You know, hopefully things continue this way. Like I'm not trying to push too far forward. But then you get that old saying, right? If you're not growing, you're dying, right? So like, there, you know, at some point there's an attrition that naturally occurs that happens outside of what you can control, right? The economy, COVID, you know, people grow, shrink all the time. And of course you feel the, you know, kind of reverb of that. So the $3 to $5 million people that you start with, right, and grow them, right? Is there any, like, when you, what's the ideal company that you would ultimately say is a good fit for what you guys do? You know, like, give us an idea.
Yeah, so 3 to 5 million in revenue, and they already come in with a growth mindset, and they are in a pretty decent operational standing. So they have clear roles and responsibilities for their staff. They have some people dedicated to sales activities, such as filling the pipeline, whether it's their full-time job or not, they at least need somebody dedicated to doing that. They can interact with us regularly. They continue to do their homework. We send them homework. A lot of it, especially for doing their website, we have to dig deep into what are they offering? What are they about? How do we build trust? Who has access to your social media accounts? Oh, somebody you don't know? Let's go figure that out. And then they're willing to grow. They want to be challenged. And I'm not saying they have to listen to everything we say. We have lots of challenging conversations where they don't always, they're like, well, what about this and that? We encourage that. We're partners, but they are dedicated to growing because they know what their next big project is and they want to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. People who aren't sure,
that's a pretty clear, that's a pretty clear answer, guys. I mean,
yeah.
So if you were, so let's, for everyone else, it doesn't fit your perfect mold, and you had given some tips earlier, maybe ask for a couple tips now that, you know, could help the good of the whole. If somebody came to you and they said, I got $3,000 to $5,000 a month to play with, where should I park that? Should I do, you know, maybe I can't afford your service, but if I had to, if you were to advise me, here's your best bet. Gary Vee says, in-feed LinkedIn ads. That's his bet. You know, he's like, if you're not doing that, you're missing out. Okay, thanks, Gary. Would you say AdWords? Would you say, like, where would you park that money if you only had that, you know, kind of little bucket every month to spend?
So first of all, I do want to make it clear, everybody is in a different part of the process. So it's important. We would start with an audit and be like, you got 3 to 5 grand. Let's do an audit first. Let's see what's really going to bring you value. And then you're going to invest in that.
Okay.
That's going to be our first response. If they're just like, no way in hell am I going to do that? We're going to be like, go ahead and start. You can try Facebook ads. You can try doing email campaigns. You could try doing all these things. We can't guarantee any specific result because you're unique. You need a customized recipe. And I wish I could boil it down. I wish I could boil it down to something so simple and so easy. It's just the truth. It's not. But we would do our best to help steer them within a range of, like, given what your audit says, here's what we would suggest within your budget. That could be a first, like, next step forward with your sales and marketing.
So the answer is there's no silver bullet.
There isn't. And I think it's interesting that we're even designed to think there's a silver bullet. If I came to you with technology and I'm like, what's the one thing I could do to stay protected from all the bad actors out there? What would you tell me?
There isn't any one thing. There's a lot of things.
You tell me to burn all my computers and get offline. Is that an option?
Well, if you're gonna cut electricity, go off the grid and live in the cabin in the woods,
Yes.
yes.
That's an option. That's a clear-cut option, but that doesn't solve the real problem. It doesn't address the reality of our lives.
Yeah, if you don't have anything, if you don't have any data that's worth hacking, then I guess it can come.
Write everything on paper and mail it.
Mail. That's I think that's a very important message that everybody should take away. Like, there's a couple of things I definitely would say are takeaways from this call. Number one is there is no, just like Keith kind of said, right? And he actually just popped in, but I'll check it in a second. If you can your packages and you make them cookie cutter, they'll help some people, but the reality is this is not one of those things. it really needs to be, kind of custom fit for you, which is interesting because a lot of marketing people say the opposite. Here it's like, hey, listen, not everything works the same way for everyone. And if you want to get the maximum results, we need to build that for you. And yeah, I think that's a very different message than most people are hearing.
And I think that if they're going to spend their money, like they're going to go to a marketing and sales partner, they should make sure that when they spend their money, the onboarding process is your sales and marketing team are starting to understand deeply the ins and outs of your business, from like snout to tail, all of it. What we find sometimes with some of our MSPs, we come in and we start looking through their website content and it's gobbledygook. It's just written for SEO. Like a human cannot make sense of it. And so not only are they wasting real estate and SEO doesn't like it when you like stuff all the keywords in there, it's also, they can't use their website as a sales tool. Like the brilliant thing about a website, you can pull it up anywhere. You can be on a sales call and be like, hey, go to this website. I'm going to walk you through our case studies. I'm going to walk you through our package. Tell me what, and you can have a real conversation, but have something to focus the conversation on instead of emailing PDFs and all this other crap all over the place. And most people looking on their phone. They could be in the car, right? Hopefully not driving. Look at your phone. I want to talk to you about what we do for this specific industry.
Interesting.
And it makes everybody speak from the same language too. If you have different people in the sales team, y'all reading from the same script.
Wow, that's a
Cohesion's
universal.
good.
That's a universal problem. So let's not fight around that, but or beat around that bush. But so Keith came back and said, I would say start with having a value, education, knowledge, etc., and then simply go old school belly to belly sales. I don't think I've ever heard that before. He says, you'd be surprised that if you have the value and history of success, you can meet with Boeing or a municipality or a jet manufacturer. Nothing beats face-to-face for us old guys. You know what? There's definitely a place for that. And that's probably why you're really good at value-based sales. I think, Keith, you're one of these guys who are willing to do the networking and the FaceTime and the that kind of stuff to get to those conversations. But to Heather's point, there's a lot of people that are just awkward. They don't fit well in that, kind of environment. And the whole point of the marketing and sales effort is to get past the, struggle of the introductory phase so that you can get into, can I help you? And if so, how? And I think that's really where there's a huge difference. Like, I know a lot of people like live and die by the personality test and the disc test and all this, like making sure you have the right minded person for the role. People in sales, I mean, I guess there can be bad people in sales for sure, like any other industry. But if you're really a rock star, you're really crushing it in sales, you have to be wired a certain way. Like you cannot get to the point where you're struggling to do the initial conversation and get past that ice breaking period so that you can get into, what you're actually trying to get to. So I think the whole point of sales and marketing, and especially if they are designed to mesh well together, and apparently they're supposed to, if you didn't know that, is you want to make sure that when those opportunities come up, when those conversations come up, you have the best possible chance for success rather than, hey, I'm just going to keep on shooting, throwing things against the wall, and eventually I'll run into somebody that fits. Because unlike you, Keith, there's people out there that, man, if I put them in a bar at happy hour and said, hey, see if you can run into somebody in this crowd that you might be able to do, work with, they couldn't even talk to a single human being. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And if more people were like you, Keith, I'd say, yeah, hey, you can absolutely do it the old school way, which, by the way, I don't disagree with you at all. If you can do that, absolutely be out there and crush it. That's awesome. But for everyone else, the internet has changed the way people buy. And there is such a thing, maybe not in MSP land, because I don't think Heather would disagree. If I were to try and sell MSP IT consulting services, no sight unseen, zero communication, just buy a package off my website, I can imagine a billion ways where that would end badly. But so putting that aside, but there is an Amazon effect, right? Where you never talk to a human being, you press go and you bought something. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and then you never return it, right? I just don't think that fits well for professional services. So I think that's where the strategy has to come in. And your gas and tank analogy was great. Here's my analogy, right? And Dave will love this because I know he's a big Vikings fan, NFL guy. if you show up on the field with no game plan and just say, hey, my guys are just better than your guys and we're just going to outplay you, like the level of separation in the NFL at that level is so thin that that doesn't work. It's not like a tier 1 college team playing a tier 3 or a college team being a high school team. Like it just doesn't work. There's not that level of difference between the athletic ability of the people in the field. It's because they're at that level. So back to the question I asked Heather earlier, which is, hey, 15 people show up in the Google Maps search or whatever. How do these people decide to call you versus somebody else, or, set up a meeting with you versus somebody else? That's where the next level strategy comes in, or else you're not even on the field and you can't even play. I will give Keith his two cents. He's like, or the Cowboys of using the Eagles. They absolutely did. I'll admit, my rookie head coach and his team showed up into Dallas on Monday night and did not have a plan. Did not have a good plan at all. And Dallas clearly had a plan and they executed and they won. But there will be a rematch, and I truly believe you learn, right? At least I surely learned from my mistakes. So I hope these guys go back to the drawing board and say, man, got our butts handed to us and we better do something different. But to Heather's point, I'm going to let her get the last couple words in here. At least they're willing to even tell you, hey, this isn't working. We need to change it. But if you're not in it for the long haul and you're not going to try and, get to a good recipe, I don't know how you, like, other than regurgitating the same content everybody else is going out there. And by the way, if you go to some of the bigger vendors that are the people that you pay, right, your vendors are now competing with you in a lot of these cases, their websites say the same thing as your website. Now, what do you do? Mm-hmm. What are your final thoughts, Heather?
Invest the time and money in finding the right sales and marketing growth focused agency to work with, because they're going to challenge you not just from some of your operations, but some of what you've tried in sales and marketing, how you understand sales and marketing, how you relate to people, how you're educating them, how you communicate. And they're going to force you to start challenging yourself. And it's important. It's how we all grow. We talk about mindset a lot, but I don't know if people really have the tools to know how to challenge some of their limiting beliefs. And that's what's going to be valuable. And to that effect, Dave and I are trying to put out more education via a podcast. It's going to be called From Stuck to Success. Right. And it's going to be about how do you unlock your business's growth to get to your next big thing. We'll continue to have conversations like that and help build out a conceptual framework for people to be able to make sense of their sales and marketing experiences and what to expect and what they need. As well as at some point, we're going to be launching like a sales coaching program. We're finding that a lot of owners of MSPs don't know how to manage their sales team.
Wow.
They don't know how to manage an ISR. And so they end up spending money and it's not working. And that's very frustrating and disappointing.
Yeah. Well, sometimes they have a hard time just managing their technical people. It's not talk about this. Where can people find you, Dave, online, the podcast? Like where do they go?
Yeah. So we're on Facebook. The podcast will probably be launched, I'm thinking, in the next month or so. You will just find us on all the podcast places like Spotify and Apple and the Google Play Store. We're on Facebook. We have a private Facebook group where people can talk more about sales and marketing, and then Dave will give responses. We are at scottgrowthstrategies.com. We also are on LinkedIn. And then I think Dave is on Twitter and some other things. Yes.
Dave, you're on Twitter. Can I find you on Instagram?
Well, I don't think he's on Instagram. I don't know. His personal stuff's on Instagram. Let's say that.
I'm sure.
Mostly we stick to Facebook and LinkedIn for business just because do you need another channel to look at? Seriously.
I don't think too many people.
And we'll be launching our TikTok. I'm kidding. We're not doing TikTok yet for business.
Dave on TikTok?
One day.
That'd be interesting.
TikTok's super fun. I'm just going to say.
Yeah. I don't know.
Love it.
I don't know. It's a dangerous app, I think.
It is.
For many reasons. All right, everyone. I love this one. I think, by the way, great analogies. I learned some new ones on this call. I'll try not and steal them too often.
Please.
Good. Obviously, Keith, hats off to you, sir.
Thank you, Keith.
Won, but I appreciate your commentary. There will be a rematch. Don't forget. And by the way, absolutely nice meeting you in person, even though it's for a little bit. Cool. You're even cooler in person than you are online. How about that? For everyone else, this session was recorded. It will be online at mspinitiative.com under sessions. It'll also be on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn and all that stuff. Yes, pleasure was all yours, Keith. All good. And then don't forget, MSP Initiative giveaway, MSP Initiative sessions, And if you're headed into Orlando, Florida area for the second week in November, and you're headed into IT Nation, which I believe Dave Scott from Scott Growth Strategies actually will have some sessions. So
Yes,
we're going to make sure we put those out there, because those are ones that if you want to learn more, but you're not sure yet, hit those sessions up, and then you'll get it like, the next level, right? So we'll get those out there as well. And we're looking forward to seeing you guys, hopefully in person before the end of the year. Heather, absolute pleasure having you here. I think everybody got just a little bit from it. And, I'm going to refer people to this just because, hey, listen, there's a right and a wrong way for everybody. And I think they need to realize that, 30, 60, 80, $100,000 down the line is a pretty, once you get to the end of that line and you don't have anything to show, that's a bad position. So high stakes gambling, she says.
It's a pleasure, George.
You got it. Have a good one, everyone.